I'm Zoe Delahunty-Light, and I'm about to enlighten you about the darker side of Elden Ring that is as messed up as the Erd Tree is golden, how omens are treated, and the consequent story of Mohg and Morgott, sons of Godfrey the First Elden Lord and Queen Marika the Eternal. There's a lot of background lore to get through here, so I'm just going to get on with it. Let's go. To understand the twins Mohg and Morgott, you first need to understand omens. Omens are the name given to individuals who are born without grace in the lands between. Now, listen up, because this next bit is crucial to understanding a lot of Elden Ring. Grace gives life to the Tarnished and those in the lands between, and is also guidance given by the Erd Tree that lets you see the path you need to take in life, which takes the form of golden traces in the air. In the game, you use it to give you indications of where to go next in the world. However, outside of gameplay mechanics, grace is still very important to the majority of those in the lands between. Crucially for the Greater Will, the outer god who holds most influence in the lands between, grace is the force that binds the lands between within the holy system of order. Still with me? Order is embodied in the Elden Ring. The Elden Ring keeps this whole order and therefore the structure of the lands between intact. Hence, when the Elden Ring was shattered by Marika, order was corrupted and the whole of the lands between suffer, as there's not this holy shackle binding its people together anymore. So, to be without grace is to be essentially outside of the Erd Tree's influence and favour, which makes those who depend on the Erd Tree for power and order, both hierarchical social order and holy order that is, very uneasy indeed. Oh good, you're still with me. Bearing all that in mind, like I said, omens are born without grace and so are treated with immense superstition and suspicion by the lands between. They can be recognised by birth by the horns that grow all over their body. These horns potentially connect the omens to the Crucible, which is a precursor to the Erd Tree that I'll explain in another upcoming video, as that's a whole other mess to detangle and I don't want to overwhelm you just yet. So, horns equals omens. Omens are treated terribly from the time they're born. Their horns are cut off when they're babies, killing most of them. This treatment is reserved for commoners because, just like in our world, the rich and powerful get special treatment. Omens born to noble families are allowed to keep their horns and thus live, but their very existence is kept a secret and they're imprisoned for eternity, decked in literal shackles and hidden away by the noble family they're born to. In adulthood, omens grow to be much larger than ordinary humans or albinorics, with grey skin, usually have large tails and are very resilient. The description of the Omen Cleaver weapon indicates that omens were used in war as massive tanks, with it reading that cleavers were awarded to omens as a tool of war. However, it also says that when bestowing a weapon, preparations must be made for taking it away, implying that omens are exploited for as long as they're useful, then imprisoned once more. Pretty sad. Attempts to quote-unquote cure omens were made by perfumers. Perfumers were those who practiced apothecary and, broadly speaking, healing physics of a kind, the art of which used to be jealously guarded in Leyndell. After the shattering, the perfumers were drafted into the war and their perfumes and potions were swapped for chemistry of a different kind, explosives and physics that bolster the body. One in particular, called Tricia, was known for her tireless efforts to treat omens, staying by them in death and ensuring they could pass peacefully, free from any pain. Not all perfumers were as kind as Tricia though. In fact, one named Rollo drank a physic to rid himself of emotion so he could become an Omenkiller. An Omenkiller's purpose is obvious: to hunt and kill omens. So depraved are they that the very blade they wield is comprised of a row of amputated omen horns, and they wear an omen smirk mask that's carved to resemble the evil spirits that haunt omens in their nightmares. Omenkillers are fucked up. Public relations with the omens weren't helped at all by the Dung Eater and his seedbed curse. This curse, once placed on a corpse, gives them omen horns and prevents their souls from returning to the Erd Tree. Thanks, Dung Eater! Now omens are also associated with diseases and corpses too. Good job. Okay, so now you know what omens are and how they're treated in the lands between, it's time to talk about Godfrey's twin sons Mohg, the Lord of Blood, and his twin brother Morgott, the Omen King. Godfrey had his grace taken away by Marika after his confrontation with the Stormlord, and the theory I have is that's why his sons were born omens. As their father was graceless, they were cursed from birth, even though their mother was the goddess Marika. Mohg is the evil twin. It's simplistic, but true. After being imprisoned along with his brother Morgott, Mohg revelled in his impure blood and soon became determined to start his own dynasty. In the cursed blood pot description, it says that the item causes spirits to assail the target with a rabid fervour, which is a childhood memory of Mohg himself. At a young age then, Mohg was probably physically assaulted by a group of people just like those spirits, indicating that even though he was the son of the first Elden Lord, he didn't get any special treatment. Being an omen doomed him to a life of imprisonment and humiliation. Over time, Mohg began to commune with an outer god known as the Formless Mother. We know more about her than we do the other outer gods. The Formless Mother, also known as the Mother of Truth, craves wounds and blood, which suited Mohg nicely. Escaping from his prison, Mohg somehow got deep underground to Nokron and stood before her. His accursed blood erupted with fire, and from thenceforth Mohg was besotted with the defilement he was born into. From the Formless Mother, Mohg learnt blood sorcery and would pass that on to those who followed in his wake. With such a formidable power behind him, Mohg started to build a palace and recruit pure blood knights and nobles who sought the power of blood sorcery. These nobles were trained, then turned into sanguine nobles who drained the living of blood in service of their lord. Worshipping him in the Rose Church, these nobles adored the originally named Blood Rose that grew only in places slick with blood, using it to craft all manner of blood-sapping weapons and ingredients. It was Mohg's aim to establish a dynasty named Mohgwyn, and it's no coincidence that that name combines both Mohg and Godwyn, Godfrey's murdered son. During this time, Mohg would abduct war surgeons, those who tended to the wounds of the soldiers on the battlefield, due to their knowledge of blood, in an attempt to find a way to control the accursed blood that ran through Mohg's veins. By the sounds of it, and specifically the misericord description, the war surgeons did deliver mercy to wounded soldiers, but some of them were ruthless killers using the war surgeon garb as an excuse for the deaths that happened under their watch. The only war surgeon that would survive Mohg's abduction was White Mask Vare. Vare was a different kind of breed from the other war surgeons. Considering Vare calls you a lowborn if you kill him, I'm assuming he was of noble birth, and Mohg certainly took a shine to him. Such was his trust in Vare that he used the noble to recruit others on the surface of the lands between, though I'm sure calling them lambkin was all Vare's idea. Vare would seed doubt in people's minds about the Two Fingers' trustworthiness, then put them through a series of trials before transfusing them with noble, probably cursed, blood, thus making them a pure blood knight. Mohg's Mohgwyn dynasty had one core component that makes Mohg a creep. Mohg kidnapped the slumbering, cocooned Empyrean Miquella, Melania's brother and Marika's ever-young son, with the intention of raising Miquella to a god and becoming his consort. If Miquella became a god, Mohg would become a god also. In his palace, Mohg turned himself into blood and wormed his way into Miquella's cocoon to brainwash the Empyrean, but Miquella never responded to his attempts. Thank God. It's only after becoming a pure blood knight and being granted an audience with Mohg that the Tarnished defeats the Lord of Blood and destroys any hope of the Mohgwyn dynasty coming to fruition. Thank God for that too. Less is known about Morgott, the Omen King, Mohg's twin brother, and a compelling character if there ever was one. Despite being born an Omen, Morgott went the opposite way to his more nefarious, vindictive brother. Shackled inside and hidden away from the world outside, Morgott embraced his golden lineage and swore an oath of protection towards the Erdtree, even though he was without grace and was actively despised by those who followed the Erdtree and possibly the Erdtree itself. In some item descriptions, he's even described as the Lorn of Leyndell, the royal capital. To me, this indicates that despite his Omen nature, he still earned the right to be the Lord of Leyndell through his honourable actions and protection of the Erdtree, which is kind of poignant. Poor Morgott. It takes a strong heart and sense of self to defy the prejudices of the land you're born into. Anyway, during the Shattering, it appears that Morgott broke free and established his own force named the Knights Cavalry. Riding funeral steeds, the Knights Cavalry were deliverers of death for great warriors, knights, and champions led by Morgott on his massacres. Morgott was attempting to retain control of the Erdtree and ensure it remained protected despite the upheaval in the lands between, hence creating his own force to slay those who would try to become Elden Lord. That's also why he ends up calling Ranni, Miquella and Melania etc. traitors in the scene just before you fight him, because they wanted to become Elden Lords too. At some point, a Morgott split from the Knights' Cavalry, leaving them to wander the dim roads at night and pursue their own agenda. Morgott takes it upon himself to protect Leyndell from the Tarnished and those who would become Elden Lord under the guise of Margit the Fell Omen. During the boss fight the Tarnished has with him at the foot of the Erd Tree, although he calls himself the last of all kings, he also says that the thrones around him are stained by his curse, filling him with immense shame. Morgott is conflicted, torn between his Omen blood and his golden lineage. He seems to resent the Tarnished for making him fight at the foot of the Erd Tree, stating, "Thy part in this shall not be forgiven." It's only once he's defeated that he tells the Tarnished they are all forsaken and that the Tarnished deeds shall be met with failure just like him. It's sad. Morgott evidently loved the Erd Tree and took pride in his family, and if people had accepted his character rather than judged his Omen blood, he could have been a worthy Elden Lord. At least he got to be embraced by his father one last time before he passed. I'm sorry, Morgott. And that's Morgott and Mohg's lore and their role in the events of Elden Ring. This is my third video about the lore of Elden Ring, so make sure to check out the other videos on Ranni, Radahn, Rykard, Godric the Grafted and Godfrey the First Elden Lord. Do you have any other characters or events you're curious about and would like me to cover, apart from the really obvious ones? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, thanks very much, and don't forget to like and subscribe to Eurogamer as we have a new video out every single day. Now I'm going to go and mourn poor Morgott because I do feel sorry for him and all omens apart from Mohg, so I'll see you next time.